We are now going to hear from the All England Lawn Tennis Club and Wimbledon Broadcast Services and Whisper. And we're going to hear about how they go about capturing all of the action of the championships, aims and objectives of the coverage, how they're enhancing that live coverage, the work that they do with their various broadcast and streaming partners, and how the range and breadth of that digital content continues to grow as well. So lots to get through. Let me introduce you to the panel. So next to me we have Paul. Paul is Associate Director of Broadcast Production and Media Rights at the All England Lawn Tennis Club. Next to Paul is Joe. Joe is Creative Director for Digital and Content at Whisper. And just on the end there is Chris. Chris is Digital Products Lead at the All England Lawn Tennis Club. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
For
Thanks
waiting
for all
until
coming.
the end. Yes. Well, listen, thank you for having us and hosting us in your home as well. So thank you very much. So, Paul, we'll start with you, if we may. Just give us a sense, an overview, if you can, of who's involved, the organisations that are involved in helping to capture and create all of the content associated with the championships.
Yeah, sure, and it's a lot of people, and we've been doing it. People have been doing it a long time. You know, this is not a new event. The club celebrated recently its 150th year, and broadcasting-wise, you know, it's one of the very first events to be broadcast. BBC in 1937 on television, 1927 on radio. So they're celebrating at the end of their current contract in 2027, 100 years of broadcasting, which is the longest media rights contract in the world, actually, which we're very proud of. In terms of who we work with, there'll be a lot of people in this room, and actually a lot of people who have sat on these panels, including Reuters, who we sell our news rights to, and Tennis TV, who are actually transmitting Wimbledon in New Zealand this year because we didn't have a full contract. So, but in terms of the core services, I guess you're looking at the host broadcast, which WBS looks after since 2018, bringing that in-house. NEP have been our partner all of that time and before with the BBC when I was doing it there. Doing great service, but others like Gravity Media, probably in the house, you know, they're providing our net cams, for example, distribution-wise with Telstra and Globecast, and you know, even Tata, brilliant sponsor today. You know, they're working with Star India, one of our partners. So then there's all the other suppliers like Hawkeye, been talked about today, doing all of the tracking. We're converting, perhaps talk about it later, to live line calling, which is going to be a big thing. But other smaller companies like Tennis Viz who have come on board. So all of that data capture that Bruno was talking about, Alan Bruno, earlier on, you know, that's a big part of our play now. So the core tennis coverage looked after by NEP, but all the other, what I call the white vans, which keep growing seemingly in the broadcast compound. So it's a lot.
Yeah, an array of suppliers and partners there. And one of the more recent organisations you're working with is Whisper. So, Joe, give us an idea of Whisper's remit. You've been working with the AELTC for the last couple of years. So what has Whisper been tasked to do?
Yeah, so our remit basically is everything outside of the host in terms of we provide broadcasters with all additional content, feature content, rushes, players practicing, rushes of players practicing, rushes of players arriving, any content that can basically enhance and supplement rights holders' coverage. We also, that could be openers, it could be features, it could be standout moments, such as the Andy Murray retirement VT this year that we delivered to broadcasters, that is a fully packaged tribute that BBC ran. And also a big part that we're proud to have worked on and delivered for the last 2 years is an Access All Areas, Access All England feed that we do, which is a curated feed that allows broadcasters to basically track players from the moment they arrive at Wimbledon all the way through to practice and then going on to court. So taking fans, viewers and broadcasters as close as possible.
And Whisper obviously works across other sports, other genres and strands of content as well. Have you been able to bring any of those kinds of lessons or experiences into the coverage of Wimbledon?
Yeah, I think so. We obviously work in lots of sports, and one of our mantras is entertainment is everything. And we always try to work out how we can make this content as entertaining as possible, but also what we realised when we came in was the media weekend, for example, you get opportunity to speak to all the players, but actually the gap is so close to the tournament starting, that a lot of that content will go out of date very quickly. So it's how could we, whilst servicing broadcasters to do traditional previews, how could we come up with strands and content that actually broadcasters could make value with over the 2 weeks of the championships, and entertaining formats that people may be able to run throughout the duration.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joe. And Chris, give us an idea of what digital means to the All England Club.
Yeah, so digital can mean a lot of different things. So in my role, I oversee our digital products. So that's primarily our website, our mobile apps, and our other digital activations, including gaming. For instance, we ran our first ever esports tournament last month, which was the Wimbledon E-Champs. But digital more broadly can mean an awful lot, and I'm part of the broader marketing team, which oversees our kind of full audience funnel, if you like. So from driving awareness and interest in the championships at the very top of it, through a lot of different activity, but also through paid media, if you think about it from a digital perspective, through to supporting our broadcast team and complementing that through our owned platforms and also our social output, through to then driving even deeper engagement when you look to get into our outbound communications and how we're managing individual relationships with individuals. So digital can mean a very broad range of things, but it's an environment which is really rapidly evolving, and so we need to evolve with that.
Great, thanks, Chris. And Paul, you mentioned the relationship with the BBC, the longest standing arrangement with a broadcaster in sport. More recently, you've started working with Amazon Prime, certainly in Germany and Austria as well. So can you give us an idea of how their needs might differ, where some of the similarities are as well, and how you accommodate the various sort of size and different requirements that you have from broadcasters?
Yeah, I think like all rights holders these days, it's about delivering a bespoke delivery to all your individual broadcasters. They all require something a bit different. We're blessed that we have huge interest from our broadcasters to come on site. So it can range from ESPN will have about 250 people flying across the pond. Not very sustainable, but they do. Got an amazing Disney wing that we created for them last year, brand new building for them, so they love the facility. They can deliver it tremendously. The BBC obviously have a lot of presence as well, 150 people. But there are smaller outfits. Channel 9 for Australia, they don't come on site. They have a couple of reporters and a camera crew. So each individual broadcaster requires a different delivery. And we pride ourselves literally in the middle of having our broadcaster meetings at the moment. So we have the broad-ranging ones where we're briefing ahead to what we're doing in 25. But the individual bespoke meetings with each broadcaster literally might be with a Pacific Island operation who have no facilities. They just receive the feed. But just in terms of making sure they're on brand, we deal with the graphics and all that sort of things. But Amazon Prime was a really good example. First of all, they were the first streamer that we'd gone with, which was exciting. And the onboarding them was a great experience just to test out and for us to examine all of our assets that we have to allow them to showcase Wimbledon the best they could. And they had obviously their own ideas about how they wanted to do that. Blessed in Germany that it's only the Champions League and Wimbledon that they transmit at the moment. So we were able to integrate into that offering of the Champions League just prior to the championships, which was great from a marketing perspective. But their requirements to come on site, they wanted an outdoor studio. So for those who went on the tour earlier on, they were able to sort of secure an upper level position. They wanted it weatherproof, so we secured these incredible sort of parasols which only sit on sail GP yachts and sort of thing. I mean, they were terrific. They actually blew away at one point, which they weren't supposed to, but that was on a quiet day. But that gave them an outdoor presentation position. We're really trying to get all of our broadcasters out and about to enjoy the British summer and present from outdoors rather than in the sort of rabbit hutch studios you kind of see the 30-year-old broadcast buildings. So every broadcaster gets that treatment effectively, and Amazon, really pleased with the output that they created. They were delighted with what they got. They streamed 6 of the courts. Some of our broadcasters stream all 18, BBC, ESPN and others, but they wanted to do a high-quality delivery of 6 feeds in the German language. So they went with that, and that worked well for their audience.
And are you doing anything differently for any of your other broadcast partners as a result of that relationship with Amazon Prime?
Yeah, as I say, I think it's tested all of our assets and how we deliver content. And as Joe was talking about and Georgie earlier on, it's all about that personalization of content. We're definitely looking at technology. A lot has been spoken about AI, how we're using it. We're definitely using it a lot. Hawkeye, obviously, we've got the live line calling next year. But things like, got a meeting coming up, had already with LingoPal. Others will perhaps know about them, but that is live, instant translation of commentary into any language that you want. So the sense that those 6 channels going into Germany could go to 18 with the German language. So literally you get a John McEnroe in German. There's some IP issues we've got to get around first, but it's within 2 seconds if you're on site with the kit. Literally plug it up and you can have individual streams to all of the countries. So that is an offering to the broadcasters. Talked a lot today about sustainability and remote productions. That would be the ultimate for me. So we're testing it out. John, our new broadcast technical manager, that's high on his list of priorities to try and get right for 25 if we go with it.
Yeah. And working with, was it Star India as well on some of that commentary work?
Yeah, we did. Our audience figures we're all trying to broaden our audiences and grow our audiences, and we really feel there's a lot of growth to be had in India, China as well, and 1 or 2 other countries. So we challenged Star India, what are we going to do together in terms of marketing the championships? And we looked at individual things like regionalization, personalization, yes, but regionalization in India, there's so many different dialects, languages. Just by doing Hindi, which they hadn't done before, quite amazingly, their audience figures went up 124%. And highlights in 3 different dialects as well, which really delivered great attention and brought people into the funnel to watch the live action.
Thanks, Paul. And Joe, what's Whisper's role in helping to create that kind of bespoke content for the broadcasters?
Yeah, so our role throughout the championships and leading up to the championships is listening to what broadcasters want and need, because obviously success for my team and for WBS is seeing broadcasters using our footage, even if it's the courtside ENG footage, if it's our full features that we're making. Success is if we see those going out. So we need to listen to what broadcasters want. I think year 2 from year 1, we took a lot of learnings. We had very basic feedback from some broadcasters that if some feature content or some hype montages were slightly shorter, they could potentially run them at change of ends. So that was a consideration we take into the second year. We go, okay, right, some broadcasters need that, but equally, some broadcasters that aren't on site need full longer packages for when it does rain. Unfortunately, it does rain sometimes. So we had to have that in our thinking. How do we have some backup packages to bridge those gaps? But also, during champs, we get feedback from MediaBank. So we upload everything from the MediaBank that gets downloaded, and we can see usage overnight to see who's downloaded what types of content are popular, what types sometimes aren't popular, but also that helps us react. So we noticed this year that a lot of our top downloaded content was reactionary content, especially with Andy playing, and wasn't he going to play mixed, wasn't he going to play mixed? But actually, when he announced that he was going to play mixed with Emma Raducanu, same day we've turned around a feature with Emma talking about Andy, and that was instantly the most downloaded clip that day. So those kind of things inform our decision of what we create over the 2 weeks, and we're always liaising with the broadcasters to make sure we're actually feeding what they want, because there's not a lot of point of us making stuff that no one wants. But also on the Access All England feed, we noticed that if we were able to, so Sabalenka pulled out this year, we actually had her warming up on the courts. We did a little run of all her arriving at the courts, practicing, then walking off. That was available to broadcasters straight away. So if they were talking about it in their programs, they were able to run it basically as a one or as a float to talk over.
Great, thank you. And Chris, on the digital platforms that are owned by the club, what are the aims with the content that you are creating for those platforms?
Yeah, so our own platforms offer a unique opportunity, because ultimately we can completely define the experience that someone is having on those. Obviously, we work very closely with the broadcasters, but having that absolute control of the experience that someone is within allows us to really make sure that they're getting a window to Wimbledon, and make sure that they're getting it in the most relevant way to them. So it's about making sure that we're giving them a depth of involvement and a depth of engagement that ultimately is going to get them more and more gripped to the event, watching the broadcast with the second screen supplementing that mostly. And I think that's been a theme that's come out a lot of this is making sure that we're not doing anything that's competing, but we're complementing. For instance, this year, one of the things which we launched for the first time was vertical video within our app, which was extremely successful in engaging with people in the sorts of formats which they're getting used to engaging with in their everyday lives. Obviously, it's fantastic to have social as an output. You can enter into the spaces where people are spending their time. Extremely important when you're doing that you make sure that you're doing it in a way which is authentic and which is relevant to them, which really resonates with that specific audience. But then we need to make sure that when they come onto our platforms, they're also still getting that consistency, which enables them to see that Wimbledon is for them and they can really engage with us, then drive that deeper engagement, have a direct relationship with them, but making sure that they're leaving with the impression of Wimbledon that we want to give them.
And obviously, during the championships, Joe's spoken about the some of the content that is created during those weeks, and the vast range of storylines that will be going on that you can kind of tap into. Your job as well, though, is to keep that going year round and trying to kind of maintain that interest and that momentum as well. So how do you go about doing that?
It's not easy. I remember I went out for dinner after the championships wrapped up a couple of years ago, and I noticed someone on the table next to me was using the app, and it's always a nice moment when you see someone using it. You think, oh, that's lovely. Finished it, closed it, deleted it, because we have to be open to the fact that we are an annual event, and we will have some people that will come in and they will only engage with us for a set time period. What it's about is making sure that we can find those points of interest that are going to be authentic and that seem natural to them for us to be able to engage. So if you look at what we do, for instance, around the broader tennis calendar, we're looking for those key moments that we can add a Wimbledon edge, especially where we can collaborate with the Grand Slams. We do an awful lot of work in how we collaborate effectively with the Grand Slams to make sure that we are hitting those audience at those authentic moments in a way that doesn't seem out of place and alien. We've got some advantages in that because Wimbledon as an event is one that transcends tennis. A lot of people tune into Wimbledon when they don't tune into any other tennis year round. It transcends sport in a lot of instances. We know from our data we've got massive segments of fans who don't engage with sport at all, but they'll tune into the BBC during the 2 weeks or ESPN in the US. So we've got to find how we can find those threads that keep them engaged, breed that tennis fandom, but also do that in an authentic way.
And Paul, those tie-ups go beyond just tennis as well, don't they? So you're working with other sports as well on some of those tie-ups. I think there was some work that you did with Formula One with some of the drivers there. Is that right?
Yeah, we always look to collaborate and look for opportunities. Invariably, when perhaps sporting events clash over the summer, often they do the bigger events. Luckily, it is lucky that we're outside of the main football and rugby seasons and cricket largely. Sometimes cricket does clash. We had the World Cup cricket on the same day. England were in the final a little while back, and there was some lovely interaction between the social media teams in terms of how's it going at Lord's, guys, literally as the two matches were coming to a climax. But yeah, we're doing something with the Premier League at their upcoming media day where it's a very simple thing. We're just doing a sort of what happens next with some Premier League players that they can use on their platforms and we can save up for next summer. So yeah, we're looking into a lot of collaboration with other sports, but it's largely driven by what is happening at the time.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure that we've got some time for any questions in case anyone has anything that they would like to ask any of the panelists. One at the front, yeah. Thanks, Will.
Hey, Andy from Atelier. I'm just interested in what the original motivation was for bringing all of the broadcast in-house. I can guess the main ones, but any insights that you can share that maybe haven't been shared before?
Yeah, no, thanks. This is not a new formula, is it? using a pun, Formula One certainly done it and done it brilliantly. OBS, I mean, there's so many great examples. Even in this room, people will have done it. It's not rocket science. I think you need to consider, as a broadcaster, can you literally invest the sort of resources that the governing body wants to do to take their sport, their output to the level that it needs to get to? There's definitely financial limitations on that. I mean, everybody knows that the challenges the BBC are under in terms of funding. Had done a brilliant job up until 2018 and done it for a long time and taken it to a great level. But I think George, you mentioned earlier on, looking for that first match of Nadal in 2003, and no one can find it. Well, it was on Court 6 because Court 6 wasn't televised. So, 2018 was the first year that every match of Wimbledon was televised, whether it was juniors, wheelchairs, invitationals. So that's a motivation, first of all. What do the broadcasters want? They want the output of their players in their territory. That's the most important thing. And they want it to a very high quality. So that was the motivation to offer that. But we, without Chatham House rules, we now spend 3 times as much as what the BBC did pay for their host coverage to what we do now. Prices, yes, have crept up, and ACS charge us a little bit more now, and Move and all the other people in this room that do a brilliant job for us. But the aspirations always grow, and you do more things and better things. So that was the main motivation, which is probably pretty obvious.
Fantastic, thank you.
Can I add one more thing to that? Firstly, thank you for hosting us today. Very nice to see the place quiet and able to walk around. But Paul, just leaning on to that question, obviously things do cost more money when you bring them in-house. But now, what's the opportunity for you? Outside of just money, I would imagine rights will improve and opportunity improves. But what do you hope over the next few years for the organisation and growing outside of where you are today?
That's a good question, Darren, and I won't get too political. I mean, you know everything that's happening in tennis at the moment, and that will be determined by control of the sport, effectively. We know we're very lucky that it's a sport that people want to watch, and it's got a global appeal. It's mixed gender, fairly equal balance of men and women, boys and girls that want to watch tennis. So it's a great asset. But what we do with it going forwards, and there's people higher than me are having those debates in terms of the Premier Tour, for those who have heard about that, and everything that ATP Media and Alan and his teams are doing with Tennis Ventures and everything, which is all good stuff. And those who watched the tennis in Saudi last week, talking about TikTok moments and stuff, I bet not many people watched the actual tennis last week, but I suspect quite a few people remember the light show before the players walked on, which was absolutely spectacular. Certainly my daughters sent it to me on something, and I watched it. And I did watch the tennis as well, but that was memorable, right? So I think what we do with it as an asset, it's always a consideration at Wimbledon, how far we go in terms of entertainment. We're at the moment, we don't announce the players onto court, right? They just come on. The first time you hear any announcements at the club, apart from Johnny Perkins saying the gates are open, are play. That's it. You watch the US Open, all the other Grand Slams, other tennis events, it's full entertainment, full use of screens and fireworks. And so where we sit within that in terms of our tradition and innovation meeting is interesting. And God, I can see Chris wanted to come in there.
No, I was just going to say that's the challenge, but also that's part of the beauty of Wimbledon, is that tension that's been there for many years in terms of the heritage and the innovation. Actually, a lot of people don't necessarily take note of some of the changes that we've introduced. As a sport, we were one of the very first to have line calling being supported by technology in terms of the challenge system. But people don't necessarily notice it because we do it in such a way which is extremely thoughtful and which honours our heritage. And a lot of it is about how we create that tension to be able to deliver the relevancy whilst we still maintain that heritage. And actually, that's one of the big opportunities in this new media landscape, is that actually you can segment that significantly more. So in the way in which we're doing that with broadcasters through those specific requests, we also do that across all of our different channels, all of the different social media output, to make sure that we're being relevant to that audience, and we're doing that in an authentic way that they're going to relate to, but we still maintain the elements of Wimbledon. But the TikTok audience aren't necessarily gonna recognise the same things as you would on conventional broadcast.
But what we can do, and we do subtly again, is to look at the schedule. So it's only very recently we've gone to playing on the middle Sunday, which doesn't please many of our suppliers who have to work on the middle Sunday. But things like the men's and ladies finals next year, 2025, will start at 4:00. That's a pretty radical move for Wimbledon, but we recognise that we want to climax the championships with, on this occasion, the men's champion holding the trophy aloft, not an half-empty stadium, reacting to a doubles match. So that there's reasons why we're doing those things. We know it'll impact, some of the fans earlier on. It'll affect hospitality, and will the Royal Box be full and everything. So there's questions to deal with, but we're not standing still.
So I think what we can take from your answer to Darren's question is we're going to have light shows next year, and maybe Bruce Buffer announcing the players as they come onto court. Is that maybe?
No.
Listen, we're getting close to running out of time. So just with that sort of eye on what's next, we know that next year we're going to see automated electronic line calling. So just give us an idea of how that will be woven into coverage, and anything else that you might be able to give us a kind of sneak peek of that will be new for next year.
Yeah, I mean, as Chris says, we've had line calling with Hawkeye for many years, and I think since 2007 it's been around. And before that we had Cyclops, for those who remember Nastasi looking at the thing opposite the service line. So it's Hawkeye Live, effectively. So live line calling. So what that means for us is we lose the tradition of the 8 mannequins, if you like. Certainly, if you're Polo Ralph Lauren, that's a downside for one of our partners that. We'll be losing them off the court. You might lose that interaction as well with the lines people, which people will miss a bit. And I think there's been comments in the last couple of days about off-court coaching as well, which has just been announced as being legitimised from the start of the new season. So how much the sport is losing its traditions, losing its personal battles, between the players, because suddenly the coaches can use technology and everything that's being collated through player and ball tracking. And Chris can talk to you about skeletal stuff that's coming in. We've got these different levels of 1, 2, 3, and 4 data, skeletal being the 4th. All of this is going to be captured and used either for coaching purposes, for broadcast presentations, or betting as well. We talked about betting earlier on. That's becoming big business. So, we're in a really good place. There's a few new things next year, but we hope it's not going to detract from the traditional audience and what they enjoy as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time, but we will look forward to seeing all of this at next year's championships and year-round on the digital platforms as well. So please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you very much, Paul, Joe, and Chris. Thank you.